How strong is Gyokko and his final self-proclaimed invincible form? How far do his demon water bending powers go? After discussing Upper Moons 6 as well as Upper Moons 4 through 1, it's finally time to talk about number 5 as he's center stage in the anime right now, so make sure to stay tuned for this one. Chill the hot show within and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing these Demon Slayer videos on the channel and want to keep them coming. Join the Demon Slaying fam if you haven't by subscribing and hitting that notification bell to turn on all notifications so you don't miss future Demon Slayer videos and updates. And now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. Gyokko debuts in chapter 98, and as I mentioned in my recent Hantengu video, Gyokko comes off much more confident even if he's a lower ranked Upper Moon, the lowest ranked present in fact. Yet he's not intimidated by the others. As he pops out of his pot, he immediately starts talking to Lord Akaza, as he calls him, saying that he is glad he is well. He says, and I quote, "It's been about 90 years, hasn't it? I'd begun to think you were defeated. My chest was tight from worry, hee, end quote." Gyokko and Upper Moon 2 Doma seem to get along pretty well, as we find out Doma got a pot from Gyokko and used it to decorate his room. Doma even invites Gyokko to come visit sometime. When Muzan comes and is chastising everyone, Gyokko has the boldness to say he's different. He has information to bring Muzan's hopes one step closer. He's interrupted by Muzan taking his head off, but since it's not a Nichiren blade, this doesn't really mean any lasting damage or anything. Still, Muzan could potentially absorb Gyokko and deal with him that way. However, that's not what he's gonna do. Gyokko is sweating, thinking Lord Muzan is touching my head, so very nice, end quote. Not what you'd expect his reaction to decapitation to be. And it makes sense why he and Doma get along. The two have a similar evil and insane in a joyful way vibe going on. Muzan straight up tells Gyokko that the first death of an Upper Moon in 113 years displeases him immensely and tells Gyokko to not ever convey such unpleasant information so gleefully again. Again though, he didn't really do anything significant to Gyokko and he moves on quickly, telling Gyokko when the information is confirmed to go there with Upper Moon 4 Hantengu. Of course, it seems Gyokko is the one with the information about the Swordsmith village, so despite being the lowest Upper Moon currently, he proves very useful. And honestly, if Muzan was smart enough to hit the Swordsmith village hard with all the demon moons, or even some stronger ones, that information could have delivered a way more significant blow to the Demon Slayer core. But he underestimates the village defenses and only sends the two weakest Upper Moons. Then later, Gyokko, unaffected by the decapitation, gives Nakime the orders to send him and Hantengu to the same place. Clearly, if you pay close attention, in contrast to Hantengu, who is cowering in fear everywhere, Gyokko has some significant confidence and boldness. He takes pleasure in being decapitated by Muzan, and these are always interesting villains, the ones who take pleasure in the pain, but let's see if his confidence is well founded or if it's just pure arrogance. Although it's not mentioned in the manga, we do know Gyokko's backstory from the fan books, which will put things into perspective a bit before we get to his fight and his feats. His name was Managi as a human, and he lived in a village at the edge of a coastline. It was a fishing village, so we start to get hints of his eventual obsession with fish. His parents went out on a fishing trip one day and never returned. They ended up drowning in the sea and their mangled corpses washed up and Managi saw them. This led to a grotesque fascination with corpses. At first, it wasn't as messed up as it got. He was obsessed with fish carcasses he found, but the villagers thought this was weird and ostracized him, believing he had gone insane. A kid eventually teased him for his weird behavior, and Managi killed the kid and stuffed him into a fishing pot. The child's parents discovered what happened and stabbed Managi with a fishing spear. A lot of fish-related stuff going on. He was left to die on the spot before Muzan discovered him and turned him into a demon. So it's very clear from the backstory how he became the demon we know today from his fascination to fish, pots, and corpses. It's even noted that Gyokko developed a strong hatred for all living things from his near-death experience but worshipped his savior Muzan. Another nod to the backstory, we're told as a demon he primarily ate the flesh of children, so the young 14-year-old Hashira Muichiro definitely seems like a fitting matchup for him. We're also told that he modified his demon body to look like a fish. How he did it, I don't know, but that explains why he looks so, well, fishy. The rest we know. He developed the habit of abducting people through his pots, and he'd use them to create his so-called art of living statues. For the artworks, he'd often leave his victims alive too, despite their mangled bodies. The fact that he hates all living things perhaps helps to explain his complete lack of empathy for his victims. In time, Gyokko would reach upper rank 5, as we know, and although his intro doesn't make it look like it, Gyokko is actually Muzan's favorite upper moon according to the fanbook, but primarily because his ornate pots can sell for a high price. So now we have a bit of an understanding of Gyokko that even people who read the entire manga would not have. Now with this in mind, let's turn to his appearance on the battlefield. During chapter 107, we see a surprise, grotesque fish corpse looking zombie chasing our little swordsmith bro. It's notable that Gyokko can summon these fish demons that can themselves kill non-combatants at the very least. Of course, these fodder creations are sliced and diced easily by a pro prodigy like Mist Hashira Muichiro. However, since it's not the main demon, these fish demons regenerate when their heads are cut, and the pots have to be destroyed. Muichiro realizes immediately that they get their powers from their attached pots and that it is a blood demon art that created them. Muichiro keeps taking down these fish giant demons until he senses that Gyokko is in a nearby pot. When Upper Moon 5 Gyokko appears, the first thing he wants to do is show Muichiro his 3 creations of the night. As he takes out the first one from a pot, he says it is called the Death Throes of the Smiths. We see mangled combined swordsmith bodies in what to Gyokko is living, suffering art. He's so messed up that he gets deep into art analysis when it comes to his evil creations. He says stuff like, look at the dirty hands with thick calluses, like swordsmiths get. I put them in front on purpose. So Gyokko is not just a strong villain, he's one of those twisted ones. He even says running them through swords brings out a certain smithiness. And he says he even left the masks on to convey emotionlessness and absurdity. And he says if he twists the katana like this, it goes kya. That is what I'm guessing that scream is pronounced like. And then we hear the suffering of the still alive swordsmiths. No joke, Gyokko sounds like a first-year university dropout who now applies what he learned to his sick creations. Finally, Muichiro has had enough, and the actual battle between Hashira and Upper Moon one-on-one begins. Now, Gyokko is no joke. He dodges Muichiro initially, teleporting from pot to pot, one of his abilities. So Muichiro starts aiming for and cutting the pots. This gets to Gyokko saying, "How dare you destroy my pots? They are a work of art, you uncultured monkey." Starting to sound like Frieza here. The angered Gyokko says, "A musclehead like you couldn't possibly appreciate my work." Which is also kind of funny just because Muichiro is one of the least muscular Hashira. Muichiro is very smart here, deducing that if Gyokko's running away like this, he will die if Muichiro cuts his head off, unlike the dividing demon, so at least he knows he'll be more straightforward to kill. Now, this is a drawback for Gyokko, but to be fair, the stronger Upper Moons also don't rely on a tricky way to avoid decapitation. Their vulnerability is their neck, but their overpoweredness doesn't allow the Demon Slayers to cut it for the most part, so at higher levels, we can't say vulnerability to straightforward decapitation is a big drawback. Gyokko then launches some weird looking fish from a pot, and they use the 1,000 needle fish kill attack. Now Muichiro gets hit by these needles that explode from the fish because he protects the swordsmiths from them. So in fact, this can be in part blamed not on Gyokko getting one over on Muichiro, but on the swordsmiths getting in the way. As the swordsmiths run away, Muichiro has an easier time deflecting needles with his sword. Of course, then Gyokko says, "Has the poison begun paralyzing your arms and legs?" So poison is another thing we see in lower Upper Moons, and the higher, stronger ones just don't need to rely on it. But it must be said, it is useful. In cases like this, in theory, it will slow down an opponent against which it could be a close match. Of course, Gyokko contemplates how thrilling the possibilities are if he can use a Hashira to create a new artwork. His perfect artwork would probably consist of all Hashira. Muichiro tells him to shut it and he's boring him. But when he goes to cut Gyokko's neck, Gyokko has another trick up his sleeve. It must be said Gyokko's powers have a lot of versatility. With this move called Blood Demon Art Water Prison Pot, Gyokko traps Muichiro in a pot made of water. This of course should lead to death by suffocation. Muichiro tries to cut his way out, but he finds that the water just expands with his sword. Gyokko then makes a good point, saying he stopped Muichiro's breathing, which is a Demon Slayer's greatest weapon. So this really does seem like a very overpowered technique. That is, if it works like it should. All the while Muichiro is fighting Gyokko, we see that his fish demons are still running amok. They attack swordsmiths, showing how deadly this demon can be, even while fighting and so far winning against the Hashira. It's even commented that one of these demons easily defeated the core members who protect this village. I hope everyone understands that if a demon can create demons that can easily even beat combatants, then that demon is very strong indeed. It takes Hashira Mitsuri to finally take down these demons and save the swordsmiths. So if Mitsuri didn't show up, it's likely that Gyokko, even while fighting Muichiro, would have succeeded in killing many swordsmiths, including the most skilled chief. Anyways, back to drowning Muichiro. Now, hypotheticals may always be inaccurate, but one could at least imagine that if Gyokko paid close attention or launched some more attacks at Muichiro while he was trapped, he might have won. However, he was overconfident, as we talked about before and as was clear from the beginning of his introduction. He goes to do other things and just leaves an undead Muichiro to himself. Muichiro thinks to himself that he has enough breath in his lungs for one more attack, but it's still not enough, and again the water moves with his sword despite the fact that he used a thrusting technique. Muichiro starts to think he's done for, while Gyokko continues attacking swordsmiths. And in fact, he gets distracted by Haganezuka. He sees him completely ignoring him in Upper Moon with his astounding level of concentration. He's so absorbed in his work that Gyokko is jealous, saying he's never concentrated this hard as an artist, and it puts him to shame. Even after attacking him, Gyokko notices that this man's hands never stop, and his concentration as an artist actually saves Haganezuka. Let me explain. Gyokko thinks to himself that sure, it would be easy to kill him, but he wants to find a way to make him set aside that blade. He wants to break his concentration. His ego as an artist, in this case, messes him up. He could have quickly finished these swordsmiths and maybe even returned before Muichiro could have done anything, but he thinks he has time to mess around. Back to Muichiro, and he thinks he is about to die because he's run out of breath. Kotetsu is the one who comes when Muichiro has given up and tries to help cut him out. In the process, he gets attacked and hurt by a small fish demon. The small fry stabs him in a vital spot as Muichiro notices. Muichiro wants him to run and save himself, but props to Kotetsu, he keeps trying to help. He blows air bubbles to Muichiro, and these air bubbles, because breathing is the key to the power of Hashira, let Muichiro use an attack to finally escape from the water prison, which is really cool when you think about it. Even though Kotetsu is physically weak, he was able to help Muichiro break out. So it can be argued that Gyokko would have won if Kotetsu didn't bravely stay until he found a way to help free the Hashira. So props to Kotetsu, he's kind of like the real MVP here. So Muichiro is now free but still feeling the poison and his lungs hurt from all the water in them. However, Muichiro regains his memories at this point, and this coincides with a big power up. He awakens a Demon Slayer mark and becomes stronger than ever before. This is also done in epic fashion with his dying twin from the flashback saying, "The Mu in Muichiro is the Mu in Mugen," meaning infinity. Muichiro can tap into an infinite strength as one of the chosen. In his flashback, we even find out Muichiro is from a family of incredible swordsmen who used the very first form of breathing techniques. And yes, later we will figure out that Muichiro is from the same family of ancestors that produced Yoriichi, the strongest demon slayer in history, who embarrassed Muzan, and a direct descendant of Kokushibo, Yoriichi's twin brother, who used moon breathing and became the strongest Upper Moon. And before all this, Muichiro was also singled out by Tengen as being especially talented, like Gyomei, the strongest Hashira. So in all fairness, all of this should be taken into account when judging how strong Gyokko is, because Muichiro is not your average Hashira, plus he's gotten stronger than he's ever been before, so don't let his young 14-year-old age mislead you. So this already super talented prodigy Hashira awakens the Demon Slayer Mark power-up, which, as I explained with Mitsuri in my How Strong is Hantengu video, is pretty much like going Super Saiyan for Demon Slayers. All this time, Gyokko has been growing increasingly frustrated that Haganezuka just kept taking attacks and focusing on his work. Even crushing one of his eyes didn't stop Haganezuka. This boss of bosses didn't even cry out. Gyokko doesn't want to kill him though, since it will be like admitting defeat, admitting he can't break his concentration and that he's the worst artist. But then Muichiro comes back, and Gyokko at this point, notably, is still quick enough to dodge. Gyokko admits his overconfidence when he says, "How? I have no idea. I thought he was dying, so I wasn't paying any attention," end quote. Well, against the Hashira, you probably should have been paying attention is the obvious thought right here. So you can tell that Gyokko has a lot of flaws. Gyokko then notices the mark and wonders how, despite the poison, did Muichiro attack quicker than before. Even though Gyokko mostly dodged, he did get cut a bit by Muichiro's previous attack. He then produces giant octopus tentacles that wrap around Muichiro. However, Muichiro succeeds in cutting up the tentacles to Gyokko's surprise. He then moves in closer to Gyokko, but Gyokko transports, saying that's some fast chopping, but he can't match how quickly Gyokko moves through his pods. However, it's one of those epic delayed reaction cuts, and in fact, Gyokko's throat was caught a bit. Muichiro says he'll cut it off all the way next time. So right now, the stronger than ever despite poisoning Demon Slayer Mark Muichiro appears to be winning. Muichiro actually continues to also play mind games with Gyokko, and with his banter clearly gets on Gyokko's nerves, which arguably also prevents Gyokko from focusing and giving it his best. When he comments that one of Gyokko's pods shows shoddy workmanship, Gyokko loses it, looking more upset than we've ever seen him. The demon is clearly not keeping his cool, and that's clearly not good for a fight, especially when you already lack caution like Gyokko. Gyokko then uses Blood Demon Art 10,000 Gliding Slimefish. Gyokko explains that 10,000 assassins will eat Muichiro down to his bones, but Muichiro manages to avoid damage by cutting them all. However, Gyokko continues to be tricky, and when cut, these fish spray poison absorbed through the skin. Yet Muichiro is so skilled right now that he manages to spin and deflect all of it. Then, as Muichiro is about to beat him, Gyokko sheds his skin and shows Muichiro and us his true form. He says Muichiro is only the third to ever see this form, and that once he gets this serious, no one has ever survived. Gyokko proclaims that in this form, these transparent scales are stronger than diamond. He developed this form inside his pot. He tells Muichiro to kneel before this perfect, beautiful form, but Muichiro continues to get on Gyokko's nerves. In this form, Gyokko gets a noticeable speed boost, and what he touches seems to sprout fish as well. Gyokko says, "What do you think of my godlike hands? Anyone my fists touch turns into adorable fish." So kind of like the Midas touch, just with fish instead of gold. He goes on to compliment his own speed, his flexibility, and toughness. He just keeps saying how great he is, but Muichiro just mockingly grins, which by the way, I love that grin, and he says even the strongest attacks are pointless if they don't hit. Love this version of Muichiro toying with the upper moon, so hilarious. And it's also the more rewarding because Gyokko just keeps hyping himself up. He says, "Behold my magnificence," when I get serious. The two are fighting at a high speed. All the time, Gyokko says stuff like, "How do you like my moves that defy the laws of nature thanks to my scales? I have complete freedom of movement. It's impossible to predict. I love contradicting laws of nature. What kind of food should I make you? I'll rip off that ugly head of yours and replace it with a beautiful fish head." He thinks he's already won against Muichiro, but he can't get a finishing blow. He attacks Muichiro but only slices his afterimage. He's shocked at how he keeps disappearing. Gyokko wonders what's going on, saying it's as if he's shrouded in mist, which I gotta say makes sense for the mist breath style using Mist Hashira. Then Muichiro drops such a satisfying line as Gyokko is getting frustrated. He says, "Did you think you were the only one who wasn't being serious before?" And then before Gyokko can react, Muichiro cuts his neck that's supposed to be tougher than diamonds. It takes a while for Gyokko to realize what happened, and is shocked when he realizes Muichiro has cut off his head. We're then told by the narrator how Muichiro was able to win. He used mist-breathing 7th form Obscuring Clouds. This technique uses wildly fluctuating speed to confuse one's opponent. When you show yourself, you move as slow as a turtle, but when you're hidden, you move in the blink of an eye. Its top speed is even faster than Gyokko, who was Upper Moon 5. Already injured Muichiro defeated an Upper Moon, and we're told this was indeed an incredible turn of events. After this, Muichiro starts foaming from the mouth and collapses since poison was coursing through him. So again, the humans are saved by working together. The swordsmiths help turn Muichiro so he doesn't choke on the foam and will help treat his wounds and poisoning. However, what can't be denied is that Demon Slayer Mark Muichiro outclassed a final form Upper Moon 5 despite the poison running through his veins. So what can we conclude from all this? Well, Upper Moon 5 Gyokko definitely comes off as more bark than bite, but he wasn't all talk despite his overconfidence. We must keep in mind that not only is Muichiro considered one of the 2 most gifted Hashira, and has arguably the best genes out of all of them, he got way stronger over the course of the fight when he regained his memories and awakened the Super Saiyan-like Demon Slayer Mark. This, as mentioned, allowed him to attain a speed faster than Gyokko's, so Gyokko couldn't land a hit and Muichiro could. What's more, he was strong enough to cut through Gyokko's final form, which was supposed to be tougher than Diamond. So I think it's easy to underestimate Gyokko's full power if you overlook how actually special and strong Muichiro is by the end of this fight. Gyokko would have won if Kotetsu didn't come to Muichiro's aid with the water prison. But at the same time, if Muichiro unlocked Demon Slayer Mark Muichiro in the beginning, then he would have won before Gyokko could even trap him. So what ifs are kind of pointless since it's made clear full power Muichiro now surpasses full power Gyokko. As mentioned in the Hantengu video, there is a big jump from the lower 3 upper moons and the top 3 upper moons. And that's clear here too. Gyokko is stronger than Daki and Gyutaro, so it's all the more impressive that Muichiro could solo him at full power. But Gyokko is also weaker than Upper Moon 4. While Upper Moon 4, it's implied, got stronger during his fight, even though he already started higher ranked than Gyokko, Gyokko doesn't appear to have gotten any stronger during the course of this fight. Probably because he was so overconfident and thought that his final form was unbeatable. So what's the point of getting stronger? He never felt threatened until he died. In the end, he was defeated before he knew what hit him. So not only is he not special among upper moons, his overconfidence and lack of caution further hurts his chances of winning any fight. And although poisoning sounds good in practice, his poison worked way too slow to affect the outcome of his fight against Muichiro, so it wasn't that useful. The same can be said for a lot of his arsenal, which sounds good in practice, but wasn't that useful in actuality against a skilled enough opponent. However, we are lucky that Mitsuri didn't face Gyokko, since her clumsiness compared to the more skilled Muichiro could have had dire consequences against this demon who could trap her in a water prison or turn her into fish with one touch. I don't think she would have fared anywhere near as well as Muichiro did. Let me know in the comments if you think she could have pulled off the win too or no. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the insane demon moons. And if you want to know about all 18 demon moons and Demon Slayer history, including hype ones only revealed in rare bonus materials, then you don't want to miss my all 18 demon moons explained and ranked video, link on screen right now, and I'll see you there.